10 Little Aliens by Jansen Davies. Chapter 1. The Arrival. The mansion loomed like a forgotten ghost of Earth's past, perched on the icy crust of Callisto, Jupiter's haunted moon. Its architecture was an anachronism, Art Deco spires, velvet awnings, and brass fixtures that gleamed beneath the dome's artificial starlight. It was a place built to evoke memory, not comfort. A place where shadows lingered longer than they should. 10 figures emerged from the shuttle, each cloaked in anonymity. Their forms varied, some bipedal, some serpentine, some cloaked in shimmering exosuits that refracted light like oil on water. They hailed from distant systems, the sulfur mines of Virex, the cloud cities of Thalos, the drowned archives of Nemea. But tonight they were not themselves. A servant robot greeted them at the entrance, its voice a hollow echo of Earth's hospitality protocols. "Welcome, honored guests. Please accept your character designation for the evening." It extended 10 cards, each bearing a name etched in gold foil. Bogart, Cagney, Raft, Robinson, Wells, Lore, Lancaster, Mitchum, Tracy, and Widmark. No one spoke. They took their cards in silence, studying the names. Earth film noir legends, long dead, long mythologized. The irony was not lost on them. Tonight they would wear masks of memory. Inside, the mansion radiated with artificial warmth. Velvet curtains swayed despite the absence of wind. A grand chandelier flickered overhead, casting fractured light across the marble floor. The walls were lined with portraits, actors, detectives, criminals, all watching with eyes that seemed too alive. The guests gathered in the parlor, where a second robot stood beside a vintage phonograph. It clicked, whirred, and played a recording in a voice that was neither male nor female, but something in between. Calm, clinical, amused. "Welcome to the game. You have been selected for a unique opportunity. The last guest remaining in this mansion by sunrise will receive 100 million credits. You may not reveal your true identity. You may not form alliances. You may not leave." A pause, then, "Good luck." With a hiss, the mansion's dome sealed shut. A force field shimmered into place, locking them in. The air grew heavier. The guests looked at one another, not as comrades, but as threats. Raft broke the silence. "This is a trap." "Or a test," said Wells, his voice like velvet over steel. "Or a joke," muttered Lore, already pacing. Bogart stood near the fireplace, card in hand, eyes unreadable. "Doesn't matter. The credits are real." Cagney laughed. "And so is the danger." They argued, protested, demanded release. But the mansion did not respond. It only watched. Eventually, they settled. The temptation was too great. 100 million credits could buy a planet, erase a past, rewrite a future. They would play the game. Dinner was announced. Robots served delicacies from across the galaxy, steamed krill from the oceans of Verne, fermented root from the jungles of Kosh, and a replica of Earth's roast duck, complete with plum sauce. They sat, they ate, they watched each other. And then Widmark fell forward, face first into his plate. His body convulsed once, then stilled. Silence. No one moved. The game had begun. Chapter 2. The First to Fall. Widmark's body lay slumped over the table, face buried in a plate of roasted krill. The others froze, their alien physiologies reacting in varied ways. Frilled necks flared, ocular membranes blinked sideways, tendrils curled in defensive spirals. The silence was thick, broken only by the soft hum of the chandelier overhead. Bogart stood slowly, his card clenched in one gloved hand. "He's dead." "No pulse," said Lancaster, scanning Widmark's body with a wrist-mounted biosensor. "No neural activity." He flatlined instantly. "Poison," muttered Lore. backing away from the table. It was the food. It has to be. The robot servers stood motionless, their trays still hovering mid-air. One of them emitted a soft chime, awaiting further instruction. No one moved. Cagney kicked his chair back and drew a jagged shard of crystal from the centerpiece. "I'm not dying for duck." "None of us are," said Robinson. "We need to secure the mansion, find the source of the threat." Raft laughed, a dry, bitter sound. "You think it's coming from outside? Look around. We're the threat." The guests scattered, abandoning the dining room like survivors of a shipwreck. The mansion's corridors stretched in all directions, ornate, winding, filled with relics of Earth's cinematic past. Velvet wallpaper, brass sconces, and portraits of long-dead actors stared down at them with knowing eyes. Bogart moved with purpose, searching for weapons. He found a ceremonial blade mounted above the fireplace in the study. It was dull, decorative, but better than nothing. He pried it loose and tucked it into his coat. In the conservatory, Tracy dismantled a servant robot, pulling its power cell and repurposing its arm as a bludgeon. "If this is a game," he muttered, "I'm not playing fair." Wells wandered the halls, murmuring to himself. 10 little aliens trapped in a box. One by one they vanish. Is it justice or theater? By midnight, the mansion had transformed. The guests no longer dined, they hunted. Every creak of the floorboards, every flicker of light was suspect. They barricaded doors, set traps, whispered theories. Then Lancaster screamed. They found him in the library, sprawled across the floor, his body twisted unnaturally. His card, Lancaster, was pinned to his chest with a silver letter opener. 2 down, said Mitchum grimly. 8 to go. Bogart stared at the body, then at the others. This isn't random. Someone's orchestrating this. Or something, said Wells, eyes gleaming. The mansion itself, perhaps. A sentient punishment. A mythic reckoning. Raft snorted. You sound like a priest. I sound like a survivor. They returned to the parlor, where the phonograph clicked again. The voice played once more, unchanged. Congratulations, 8 remain. The game continues. No one spoke. The force field shimmered outside the windows, impenetrable. The stars of Jupiter hung overhead, cold and distant. Inside, the mansion watched. Chapter 3. The third to fall. The mansion had grown colder. Not in temperature, its climate controls remained stable, but in atmosphere. The velvet walls seemed darker now, the chandeliers dimmer, the portraits more watchful. The guests no longer spoke in full sentences. They whispered. They stared. They moved like prey. Lore hadn't slept. He paced the halls with a broken candelabra in one hand and a stolen robot eye in the other, using its lens to scan corners and ceilings. He muttered to himself in a dialect no one recognized. Mitchum followed him, silent and steady. His gait was predatory, his eyes calculating. He carried a length of copper pipe, scavenged from the boiler room. It was dented at one end. Bogart watched them from the second-floor balcony, arms folded, blade tucked into his coat. He didn't trust either of them. He didn't trust anyone. In the drawing room, Raft and Robinson argued over the rules. Raft wanted to form a pact, just until morning. Robinson refused. You heard the voice. No alliances. We break that, we die. Or worse, we lose a chance at the credits. Or we survive, Raft snapped. This isn't a game. It's a trap. Wells sat in the corner, scribbling on the back of his card with a quill he'd found in the study. He was composing something. Poetry, perhaps. Or prophecy. At 3:17 a.m., the mansion screamed. It was not a mechanical sound. It was organic, a low, guttural wail that echoed through the walls and shook the chandeliers. The guests froze. Lore dropped the robot eye. Mitchum raised his pipe. Then the lights flickered. Then they went out. In the darkness there was movement, a scuffle, a crash, a scream. When the emergency lights kicked in, Mitchum lay sprawled across the marble floor of the grand staircase. His chest was caved in. The copper pipe was missing. Lore stood over him, trembling, blood on his hands, though it was unclear whose. "He came at me," he whispered. "I didn't mean to. I didn't." Bogart stepped forward. "What did you do?" "I defended myself." Raft raised his weapon. "We should lock him up." "No," said Wells, rising slowly. "We should watch him. The mansion is watching us. It wants fear. It wants theater." Robinson knelt beside Mitchum's body. "He's gone. That's 3. The phonograph clicked again. The voice returned. 7 remain. The game continues. Lore collapsed into a chair, sobbing. "It's not me. I swear it's not me." Bogart stared at him, then at the others. "Doesn't matter. We're all suspects now." Outside, the stars of Jupiter burned cold and silent. Inside, the mansion pulsed with unseen life. And somewhere in the walls, something laughed. Chapter 4. Shadows and Suspicions. The mansion no longer felt like architecture. It felt like a predator. Its corridors narrowed. Its doors creaked without wind. The portraits on the walls, those Earth film noir icons, seemed to shift when no one was looking. Bogart had begun marking the walls with scratches, counting the hours, tracking the deaths. 3 gone. 7 remained. Lore hadn't spoken since Mitchum's death. He sat in the conservatory, rocking gently, whispering to himself. His eyes were bloodshot, his hands trembling. The others avoided him. Robinson took charge. He organized a sweep of the mansion, room by room. "We need to find the killer," he said, "or the mechanism, or whatever's doing this." Raft refused. "You think this is mechanical?" "This place is haunted, not by ghosts, by machines." Bogart joined the sweep. So did Tracy and Wells. They moved through the mansion like detectives in a dream, checking vents, scanning for toxins, dismantling furniture. They found nothing. No traps, no weapons, no clues, only silence. Dinner was served again. The robots had rebooted, their power cells replaced from the backup vault. They moved stiffly, their programming degraded. One of them dropped a tray. No one ate. Tracy stood by the fireplace, staring into the flames. "I think we're being watched." "We are," said Wells. "By the mansion." "By something deeper." "You mean the voice?" "I mean the idea. This place is a myth, a punishment engine, a mirror." Bogart frowned. "A mirror of what?" Wells turned. "Of us." That night, Lore died. They found him in the conservatory, slumped in the rocking chair, his body desiccated. His skin had turned to ash. His card, Lore, was folded neatly in his lap. No one spoke. The phonograph clicked. 6 remain. The game continues. Tracy snapped. "This isn't a game. It's a torture test." Raft raised his weapon. "Then who's the torturer?" Robinson looked around. "Maybe it's one of us." They began to arm themselves more aggressively. Bogart reinforced his coat with plating from a robot's chest. Tracy built a makeshift flamethrower from the kitchen's gas lines. Wells carried a book, an Earth novel, The Maltese Falcon, as if it were scripture. They no longer trusted the mansion, but they feared each other more. Outside, Jupiter storms raged silently. Inside, the mansion waited. And somewhere in the walls, something began to whisper. Chapter 5. The third to fall. The mansion had begun to breathe. Not literally, but the guests felt it. The walls pulsed with a rhythm too slow to be mechanical, too organic to be artificial. The air tasted of ozone and old velvet. Every corridor seemed longer than before. Every doorway led somewhere slightly different than it had hours ago. They were being watched. That much was certain. Raft and Robinson had fortified the billiards room, turning it into a bunker of broken furniture and scavenged robot limbs. They spoke in hushed tones, drawing maps of the mansion's layout, though the halls kept shifting. "We need to hold ground," Raft insisted. "The killer's moving." "We stay still." Bogart didn't agree. He prowled the mansion like a noir detective, blade tucked into his coat, eyes scanning for patterns. He'd stopped thinking in terms of survival. He was hunting something. An answer, maybe. Or a reckoning. Wells had grown stranger. He wandered barefoot now, quoting lines from forgotten Earth films, scribbling symbols on the walls with charcoal from the fireplace. "It's all a script," he whispered to no one. "We're just playing our parts." Tracy had become a ghost. He moved silently through the mansion, flamethrower rig hissing softly, eyes darting. He didn't speak. He didn't sleep. He didn't trust anyone. At 4:03 a.m., Tracy vanished. One moment he was in the hallway, muttering about escape routes. The next, he was gone. No scream, no struggle, just absence. They found his flamethrower rig in the greenhouse, still hissing. His card, Tracy, was impaled on a thorn from one of the mansion's carnivorous plants. The plant had never moved before. Now it seemed to grin at them. "4 down," said Bogart. "6 remain." The phonograph clicked. "6 remain." "The game continues." Raft snapped. "This isn't a game." "It's ritual killing," Robinson nodded. "A reckoning." Wells laughed. "A performance." Bogart stared at the plant. "A hunting party." They returned to the parlor where the robot butler had reassembled itself. It served drinks no one touched. Its eyes glowed faintly red. No one spoke. The mansion creaked. The chandelier above them flickered, casting long shadows that didn't match their movements. Raft turned to Robinson. "We need to break the rules. Team up, just until morning." Robinson hesitated. "That's suicide." The voice was clear. Raft's eyes narrowed. "So was the promise. 100 million credits. You think that's real?" Bogart stepped forward. "Does it matter?" Wells laughed. "It's not about the credits. It's about the fear." No one spoke. Outside, Jupiter's storms churned in silence. Inside, the mansion waited. Chapter 6. Echoes in the Hall. The mansion had begun to whisper, not in words but in impressions, flickers of memory, phantom footsteps, the scent of places none of the guests had ever visited. Bogart caught glimpses of a smoky jazz club through the parlor mirror. Wells swore he heard a child crying in the dumbwaiter shaft. Robinson found a photograph in the billiards room of a man who looked exactly like him, dressed in 1940s Earth attire, standing beside a gravestone marked Justice. None of it made sense. Tracy was gone. Lore was ash. Mitchum was crushed. Widmark was poisoned. Lancaster was folded like paper. 5 remained. Raft had grown erratic. He paced the billiards room, muttering about escape vectors and quantum loopholes. "This place isn't real," he insisted. "It's a simulation." "We're being tested," Robinson disagreed. "It's punishment." "We're being judged." Bogart said nothing. He had begun carving symbols into the walls, triangles, spirals, eyes. He didn't know what they meant, but they felt necessary. Wells had stopped quoting films. He now spoke in riddles. The mansion is a stage. The guests are actors, but the script is written in blood. At 5:12 a.m., Robinson broke the rule. He stood in the parlor, trembling, and spoke his true name. Not the card name, not the Earth alias. His real name, an infamous one, known across the galaxy, a name that had once commanded fleets, raised colonies, rewritten laws. The moment he spoke it, the lights went out. The phonograph clicked, but no voice played. Instead, the chandelier above Robinson shattered, raining glass and fire. He screamed. The others rushed in, but it was too late. His body was gone. Only his card remained, burned at the edges. 4, whispered Wells. We're down to 4. Bogart stared at the card. He broke the rule, Raft nodded. And the mansion responded. They didn't speak of Robinson again. The mansion grew colder. The walls narrowed. The portraits changed. Now they showed scenes of violence, betrayal, fear. Not earth noir, but something deeper, something mythic. Wells stood before one and whispered, I remember this. Raft turned to him. What do you mean? Wells didn't answer. That night no one slept. The mansion reverberated with anticipation, and somewhere deep in its bones, the truth waited. Chapter 7. The Fourth Wall. Cracks. The mansion was no longer static. Its architecture had begun to shift, subtly, unnervingly. Hallways stretched longer than they had hours before. Doors led to rooms that hadn't existed. The billiards room now contained a spiral staircase that descended into mist. No one remembered it being there. Bogart didn't sleep. He traced the mansion's new geometry with charcoal and ash, marking walls with symbols that felt older than language. Triangles nested in circles, eyes within spirals. He didn't know what they meant, but they felt true. Raft had stopped speaking. He sat in the corner of the parlor, sharpening a broken chandelier shard against the marble floor. His eyes were glassy, his breathing shallow. He was waiting. For what? No one knew. Wells had begun to laugh, not constantly, not loudly, but often enough that the others avoided him. He spoke in riddles now, half-remembered lines from Earth films and fragments of alien scripture. We are the dream, he whispered to a statue of Bacall, and the dream is ending. 6 down, Bogart muttered. 4 remain. The phonograph clicked, but this time the voice did not speak. Instead, the mansion groaned. The walls shimmered. The portraits changed again, now showing scenes of violence not from Earth, but from across the galaxy. War crimes, betrayals, executions. Each guest saw something familiar, something they'd hoped was forgotten. Raft stood and pointed at Wells. You did this. Wells smiled. We all did. Bogart stepped between them. Enough. We're being played. No, said Wells, eyes gleaming. We're being remembered. They scattered again. Raft retreated to the greenhouse, where the carnivorous plants had begun to bloom in unnatural colors. Wells wandered the spiral staircase, reciting names that made the walls tremble. Bogart returned to the study, where the fireplace now burned blue. At 6:12 a.m., Raft died. They found him in the greenhouse, suspended upside down from the ceiling by vines that hadn't moved before. His card, Raft, was pinned to his chest with a thorn. His eyes were open. His mouth was smiling. 3, Bogart whispered. Only 3 left. The mansion pulsed. The phonograph clicked. Still, no voice. Outside, Jupiter's storms raged in silence. Inside, the mansion rewrote itself. And somewhere deep in its heart, the final act waited. Chapter 8. The Final 3. The mansion had grown hungry. Its walls pulsed with heat, its corridors narrowed to single-file passageways. The chandeliers no longer flickered, they burned. The portraits had changed again. Now they showed the guests themselves, rendered in Earth noir style, each caught mid-act. A betrayal, a murder, a lie. Bogart stared at his own image, knife in hand, standing over a faceless figure. He didn't remember the moment, but he felt it. Wells had stopped speaking entirely. He wandered the halls like a ghost, trailing his fingers along the walls, humming a melody that didn't belong to any known world. His eyes were distant, his smile constant. Raft was dead, suspended in the greenhouse, smiling as if he'd won something. Robinson was gone. Tracy had vanished. Lore was ash. Mitchum crushed. Lancaster folded. Widmark poisoned. 3 remained. Bogart. Cagney Wells. Raft's absence still echoed, as if the vines that took him had left a scar in the air. Cagney had grown violent. He carried a jagged shard of mirror wrapped in cloth and moved like a cornered animal. "We're being hunted," he hissed, "not by each other. By this place." Bogart didn't disagree. He'd stopped trying to map the mansion. It changed too often. Rooms disappeared. Staircases reversed. The study now opened into the attic. The conservatory led to the wine cellar. The rules were gone. At 6:44 a.m., Wells vanished. No scream, no struggle, just gone. His card, Wells, was found in the library, tucked into a copy of the Maltese Falcon. The book was open to a page that read, "The Stuff That Dreams Are Made Of." Bogart stared at it for a long time. 2 remained. The phonograph clicked. Still no voice. Cagney turned to Bogart. "It's you, isn't it?" Bogart didn't answer. "You've been quiet, watching, waiting." "I've been surviving." Cagney raised the shard. "Then fight." Bogart drew his blade. They circled each other in the parlor, surrounded by flickering portraits and silent robots. The mansion held its breath. Then they lunged. The fight was brutal, desperate, not elegant, not choreographed, just raw survival. Glass shattered, blood spilled. The chandelier groaned above them. In the end, Bogart stood over Cagney's body, breathing hard, blade slick with crimson. The phonograph clicked. The voice returned. Chapter 9. The Winner. "Congratulations, Bogart. You are the final guest." Bogart dropped the blade. "It's over." The voice paused. "Your winnings will be deposited into your prison account, though you'll probably never get a chance to spend any of it." Bogart froze. Prison. The mansion shifted. The walls shimmered. The portraits faded. The voice continued. "All 10 guests were selected for their crimes. Their bodies remain in cryogenic containment. Their consciousnesses are sentenced to this simulation, an eternal reflection of the fear they inflicted on others. A justified punishment, a hell of your own making." Bogart staggered back. "No, I'm not." "You are, and you will be again." The chandelier dimmed. The robots reset. The mansion began to hum. "You will see the others tomorrow. The game will begin anew. You will not remember. But you will have a new name. Tomorrow is Indian night. Sitting Bull, Geronimo, Cochise, and so on." Bogart screamed. The mansion swallowed the sound. Outside, Jupiter turned slowly in the void. Inside, the stage was being set. 10 cards, 10 guests, 10 sins. The robot butler stood at the door, waiting. The shuttle approached, and the mansion smiled. The end. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you.